Good evening, race fans, and welcome back to Season 15 of the Attrition Sim Race Campus Oval Series presented by SM Racing Products. Tonight we are here at the wonderful Infineon Raceway for the first time ever in league history, not just the ASRC Oval Series, but league history as a whole out here in Sonoma, California. Of course, continuing our 2024 recreation of the 2003 NASCAR racing season, which brings us here to Infineon Raceway. Opened up back up in 1968 as Sears Point Raceway, this track has changed hands and changed title sponsors numerous times over the years. It's honestly kind of impossible to keep track of. Nowadays, it's not even Infineon Raceway anymore, but that is what it was back in 2003. NASCAR first came back here in 1989, though, so a good 20 years after it first opened up, and they came up here because Riverside Raceway shut down, and they were a little bit desperate for a West Coast road course track to replace it, so they ended up going out here to Sonoma, and it has been off and on for the Cup Series ever since. Of course, back in the real world, back in 2003, this race was taken home by none other than Robbie Gordon. Now, we are here a little bit early for the start of tonight's event. I want to take a look down at some of these drivers' qualifying attempts while we still have a little bit of time left here in the event. It looks like Corey Logan is out on the speedway right now looking to set their qualifying lap right now, driver out of Noonan, Georgia. We have gotten a couple of drivers to put times down already, so here is how things are looking for the time being on the time scoring for the qualifying. Dan Ott currently holding the pole with a 1:18.63, a full 2 seconds faster than any other driver in the field right now. But currently looking down at that Caesar Robotics 24 of Corey Logan as they complete their first lap of qualifying, going to be getting a 1:25.46. And that will be placing them back in 5th here for the time being. We're going to take a moment here to refresh the overlay and try and get that extra data cleared out of there. There we go. Now things are looking a little bit more proper here. We're now working on their second lap here. Still 2 minutes left in qualifying, so they do still have enough time to get this lap done. As we take a look down at the track map, currently heading down through turns 6 and 7 here, using the shorter of the two Sonoma layouts. This is the one that was used for the 2003 race. Since then, it's kind of gone back and forth between a handful of different layouts, and of course a couple of other racing series that come out to the speedway also use different layouts for it as well. But here, using the 2 mile or 3.2 kilometer 12 turn layout. And here you can see Corey heading down through what is effectively just one of the corners at Martinsville, but on a road course to complete their second lap. Let's see how this lap time shakes out to. Going to be a 1:23.72 across the line, so that will improve their lap time by about 2 seconds. Not quite enough to get around Brandon Feeney, however. Feeney a 1:22.38. And that's going to be the end of Corey Logan's qualifying attempts, and it looks like we don't have any other drivers attempting to set a qualifying time right now. Aside from the ones we've already seen who've completed their qualifying attempts, Josh Rudolph is not going to attempt to qualify, nor is Mark Kluge, Jason Gardner, or Nico Morelli. Daniel Sparks looks like he did attempt a qualifying time and got an off track, so that lap time was invalidated. So it will just be your top 5 drivers here setting down their qualifying times here at the Infineon Raceway, but it should be just a moment here for us to set the starting grid, have drivers head out onto the speedway, and from there we can get things rolling off as we take a look down at our starting grid. Sure enough, drivers making their way on down to the starting grid now. So how about we take a look down there and see how things will be shaken up here for tonight's race. Starting out on the pole, a 1:18.631 going to be the pole setting time here for the first time in league history here at Sonoma. And our pole setter is going to be none other than the 29 of Dan Ott in the Goodwrench entry, driver out of Joliet, Illinois. Starting his outside in the 09 iRacing entry, going to be none other than Mr. Benjamin Harsty. Following back in third, the driver out of Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, in that bright orange number 44. That's going to be Mark Royce in the Harley Davidson entry. Back and forth in the 38, that is going to be the Liqui number 38 of Mr. Brandon Feeney, current points leader here for season number 15 of competition, and the current points leader right now in the overall 2024 racing championship. So Feeney looking pretty good right now, both in the short term and in the long term. Back in fifth, going to be the last driver set a qualifying time. That's going to be the CZ Robotics 24 of Corey Logan. Back in sixth, that's going to be the number 93 of Jason Gardner, who is unfortunately having a mechanical failure with his sim racing setup. So Jason will not be making the call to the grid here tonight. He will be instead acting as race control here this evening. So with iRacing not throwing automated cautions for incidents, Jason Gardner will be handling all of that here this evening. So who knows, we may end up seeing some caution flags fly here tonight. Back in seventh go, going to be the 45 of Mr. Mark Kluge in the Brandit entry, followed by Josh Rudolph in the 188 K9P Racing entry. Driver out of Medford, Wisconsin there, starting back in position number 8. Back in ninth, though, going to be one of our Canadian drivers on the Mooselanders. That is going to be Daniel Sparks in the STP entry, followed by, back at the tail end of the field, the 14 of Nico Morelli. And while that driver did not set down a qualifying time, I think that's going to be a driver to definitely keep an eye on here this evening, because Nico Morelli has proven time and time again that he is a driver to keep an eye on. Though we are getting word that actually he is having some issues as well, so he is not going to make the call to the grid either. So that's just going to leave it with an 8-car field here this evening at the Infineon Raceway here for round 4 of season 15 of the ASRC OVAL Series, of course, presented by SM Racing Products. Our lovely friends over there have been a wonderful help to the series for a long time now. Always great to have them on board here this evening, even if unfortunately none of their drivers able to make it out onto the track here tonight. But already making our way around most of the way through this initial pace lap, and we should be going green here soon. As we head our way down into turn number 11 for the first road course here in season number 15, the first of 2. This is bound to be one heck of an exciting race. But now we make our way down into turn number 11. And the iRacing.com pace car is going to make the duck down into the safety of pit lane. Going to be Benjamin Harsty and Dan Ott leading the field to green here at the lovely Infineon Raceway. And heading through turn number 12. Waiting. Green flag up in the air here at Sonoma. A very solid start for Dan Ott heading down to turn number 1. Benjamin Harsty going way wide down into there. Almost looked like he was going to clip the outside wall, but so far so good. The whole field all bunched together right now. Everyone navigates turns 1 and 2, turns 3 as well without much in the way of issues. We do have one driver off track. That's the 188 of Joshua Rudolph going off there just a little bit. Keeping it pointed in the right direction, no harm, no foul. Of course, 31 laps here in tonight's event. Still got a long way left to go. Don't want to be making any mistakes here in the early goings of this one. And of course, here in these big, heavy, lumbering stock cars, not going to be quite as easy to get around this racetrack as, well, one, even the newer NASCAR cars, but especially not any sort of sports cars or open wheel racing that we tend to see go on here at this racetrack. This track has hosted IndyCar numerous times throughout the years. But it's going to be the heavy Gen 4 stock cars that head around the speedway here for this evening, as Dan Ott comes across the line to lead lap number 1 here at Infineon Raceway, just behind Benjamin Harsty, about 0.3 of a second back. Then it's another second back to Mark Royce back in third. The rest of the field is starting to get a little bit more strung out here as they come across the start-finish line. a mostly incident-free first lap here this evening. Currently, the closest battle is going on back here at the tail end of the field. We have one driver off the track. That is Daniel Sparks off the racing service. He's going to be able to come back on here. Just a minor off track for that number 4 machine. We can take a very quick look back to see what all happened there for Mr. Daniel Sparks. Heading up into turn number 2 and just gassed it up a little bit too hard. Well, the center of balance was shifted in an awkward spot. Just enough to send him off the track, but no sorts of damage on that number 4 machine, though that will give him a big wiggle coming out of turn number 6 as he tries to catch up to Mark Kluge and the rest of the field. A little bit further up, Joshua Rudolph leading the way over Corey Lugan and Mark Kluge here. And these 3 drivers all within a little bubble of each other right now as they head down into turn 11 for the second time here this evening. So far, so good. Everyone having a pretty clean race so far here tonight. But of course, we do still have a long way left to go here this evening. But it was a cleaner start than we had back at Watkins Glen a couple seasons ago. As we might have had a little bit of an issue for Brandon Feeney. Looks like might have had some tires off in the dirt for a moment there, and again, a little bit down in the dirt there in that 38 machine, but all these off tracks, really no harm, no foul. They will negatively affect the drivers getting bonus points for clean laps, or going for clean races, excuse me. That will hurt them just a little bit if they are going for the clean race bonus. But Brandon Feeney right now has a slightly comfortable lead in both the Season 15 Championship and in the overall 2024 Championship, so I don't think he's all too concerned about that here tonight. Of course, he said he comes out here and races just for fun. He doesn't have really any goals or ambitions aside from having a fun race, and it just so happens that he is performing well. As we have a driver off the track, Daniel Sparks, going off there in turn number 10, just a little bit there. That is going to be the 3rd off track for Sparks, as I believe we just heard Corey Logan potentially scrape against the inside retaining wall just a little bit there. Heading across the line, though, everything's still looking a-okay. Up at the front, though, Benjamin Harsty starting to put the pressure on Dan Ott for the race lead, but Harsty going to go off the racetrack just a bit there in turns 4 and 5, so that's going to complicate things for him here just a little bit as he tries to catch up to our race leader. Now a nearly 2-second gap between the two of them. We can pull up the track map here, get an idea of where everyone is running at. Ott and Harsty both have pulled pretty considerable gaps over the rest of the field. A little bit further back, Mark Kluge starting to put some pressure down on the CZ Robotics 24 of Corey Logan, just behind Daniel Sparks. Has caught up to the tail end of the field, and he is getting involved in these battles going on here as well. Call it about a second total between these 3 drivers as they make their way through 8, 9, and 10, heading down into that tight hairpin of turn number 11 once again. Will we see Kluge try and make the move from that far back? No, we will not. It looked like he was angling the car a little bit there to potentially try and set something up, and not going to go for it. Daniel Sparks there is getting right on the heels of that number 45 machine. Mighty close to the bumper there through turns number 11. Falling back here just a little bit as we go into the uphill section of turns 1 and 2 once again. And I'll tell you what, for such a tricky, windy road course with all these blind corners and elevation changes, these Oval Series drivers really are tackling these right turns pretty darn well here this evening. No major incidents so far. Of course, a couple dips of tires off into the gravel, but really nothing drastic at all. And I say that we have a big wiggle for that number 4 coming out of turn number 5. Going to lose a bit of ground on Kluge and Logan there. Now Kluge also starting to close up on the back of that 24 machine. All of this battle going on back for the 6th position right now. So these are the last 3 cars here on the speedway, but they are just the only cars really within any sort of considerable distance to each other. Everyone else a minimum of 2 seconds apart. Our current race leader, they hold 4 seconds. We have a potential move on the outside. Kluge went for it, not quite able to make it stick, but he certainly tried there. Ford going to hang on to the spot though, just not quite really able to make that move work on the outside like that. Certainly a valiant attempt by that 45 machine, but I really, under any circumstances, I don't think you're going to be able to see a move for the outside work in turn number 11 unless someone really just makes a massive mistake there. But Kluge, oh, we have trouble up at the front. Mark Royce off the speedway. That was our driver running in 3rd place, and he actually is still running in 3rd place. We have another incident as well. Daniel Sparks is off the speedway as well, hard into the tire barrier. He's going to take the tow down to pit lane. We may see a caution for that. We might not. Let's see if we can't take a quick look back here and see what happened there, because that was a pretty solid impact. Looking down here at Daniel Sparks, this was the driver back in last place. It looks like this is heading down into turns 5 and 6. Really not that hard of an impact, but he did request the tow truck, and that was looks like enough to bring out the caution. We are under a yellow flag. The side-by-side just ahead as well for Kluge and Logan. That was actually a pretty solid battle going on. It does look like Kluge secured the position. So Kluge will be starting ahead of Logan on this restart. But let's take a look back here at Mark Royce as well, because we got a notification that Mark Royce was involved in a crash. Let's take a look down here to try and figure out what happened to that 44, because... oh, just a little bit too much gas. Got it looped around. Royce does not make any contact with the wall at all, so he's A-okay. Maybe burned up the tires a bit, but no actual damage to the car there itself. And, oh, well, hopping the curbs like that, that might actually... that might do a little bit more damage to him. Let's take a look back. Let's ride on board here with this driver. And see what he saw. One, going into that spin, but two, I want to see what he saw going over those curbs, because that looked like quite the jump. We're spinning around, no big deal. Gasses up to get the car pointed back in the right direction. Tries to get up to speed. So far, so good. Then right over the curbs. So he might actually have a little bit of damage on the undercarriage of that 44 machine after all. Regardless, coming back to live, we are here under caution for Daniel Sparks taking the tow back to pit lane. And it looks like he actually is still down there, so they are having to do some more substantial work on that car than first thought here. Currently, driver's still working on getting caught back up to the pace car right now, it looks like. I would imagine we're going to see pits open this time by, if I had to guess. Or we might go another lap just because it's taken everyone so long to catch up to the pace car here. Not quite sure on that. Of course, only 7 laps into this 31 lap event. It might be too early for these drivers to pit. No, it is not. Pit lane is open. Both drivers, all three, probably going to see the entire field coming down to pit lane here, because there's no guarantee that there's going to be another caution. Nope. Brandon Feeney elects to stay out, so Feeney will be your new race leader coming to the green. How about everyone else? Rudolph comes down pit lane. Kluge comes down pit lane. That just leaves Corey Logan, which looks like he has a little bit of rear end damage. Not quite sure where that comes from, but Logan going to be coming down pit lane as well. So the entire field going to be electing to pit here. and only just now making it to their stall, which just goes to show how crazy long the pit lane at Sonoma is here. But everyone makes the call to come down pit lane. Looks like 4 tires and fuel is going to be the general call for everyone here. And Dan Ott will lead the battle off of pit lane, but Brandon Feeney will be our new race leader, as he is the only driver to elect to stay out under this caution flag. I guess just going off the gamble that perhaps another yellow flag will come out. Perhaps not. We will just have to see. But for now, looks like it's going to be Feeney, Ott, your front row, then Royce and Rudolph for row 2, Kluge and Harsty for row 3. Harsty having a longer pit stop than anticipated. He's actually still down there right now with Corey Logan. A full 30 seconds of longer pit stop as we have a driver off the track. That's Joshua Rudolph to the tires in the gravel there under caution here. But a full half of a minute longer for Benjamin Harsty in pit lane over every other driver here. Corey Logan's still down there, most likely having to get some damage repaired. Daniel Sparks back out on the racetrack, but with a nearly 5-minute pit time, that is going to be splitting Sparks a couple laps down. I'd imagine we're going to see the 1 to green here this time by... We give it just a moment to come across the line here and see, but it should be 1 to green this time around. Sure enough, lights are out on the pace car, so we will be going green flag racing this time around. Going to be 21 to go at the line. So far, only 3 of the drivers having managed to catch the pace car. Rudolph still 11 seconds back. Kluge 18. Actually, let's take a look at the track map here, see where everyone is. Still fairly spread out, but I think everyone should be okay to catch up to the pace car here before we go green flag racing again. Sure enough, the rest of the field is starting to get there now, so we should be good to go here. I don't think we're going to need to extend the caution at all. Corey Logan is a bit far back in that 24, but that is because they had extra work to be done. It looks like Nico Morelli has gotten in the car. 11 laps after the green, Morelli has taken into the car, so he is working his way up to catch the rest of the field. I guess he got lucky with that timing, having the caution flag fly to be able to do that. But the iRacing.com pace car is off, so we are getting ready to get this thing rolling once again. Going to be 21 to go when we take the green flag. And sure enough, just like that, racing once again here at the Infineon Raceway. Brandon Feeney off to an early lead, but Dan Ott coming in hot just behind. It looks like these new tires might have actually made a bit of a difference here going down into turn number 1. Little bit of contact there between Ott and Royce. Everyone really trying to work their way around that 38 car that didn't pit. But so far, no harm, no foul. Ott potentially going to try to move here, going down into turn 6, going to back out of it there. Not quite able to make the move like he was hoping for. Still really right on the bumper of that 38 machine, trying to figure out some sort of way to get around him. He is being patient, but he just don't know how much longer he's going to want to actually be patient for. As we get ready to head down into turn number 11, this is probably where we're going to see the move out of Dan Ott. Feeney going a little bit wide through the corner. dipping tires through the gravel. He's not going to be able to hang on to the outside here, I don't think. Sure enough, Dan not able to make the move. Mark Royce files on in down behind. Benjamin Harsty has worked his way up to 4th. Now he's going to be the next driver trying to figure out a way to get around Feeney here. So far, so good. Heading down through turns 1 and 2. Officially 20 laps left to go here at the Infineon Raceway. Closest battle on the speedway is this one right here between Harsty and Feeney. Feeney doing everything he can to hang on to the 3rd position. Of course, the only driver that didn't pit on a bit older tires than everyone else. And of course, here at this pretty blisteringly hot road course out in the Sonoma Raceway area, it's going to be very hot out here, very hard on these tires, especially with how much braking force is involved around these really sharp blind corners. But Harsty still not quite able to get up to Feeney and make that move happen. We might try to see him go for something here down into the hairpin, but might not be able to make it happen, might not be close enough here. Enough comes up behind him, not quite able to try and make that move happen there, going down into turn number 11. Oh, maybe though, side by side coming out of the hairpin, and Feeney spins it. Feeney spins around, makes it just into the infield, so nobody involved at all, no damage or anything like that. He might be hit with one of those automated penalties for going off the track, not 100% sure about that. That's going to send Feeney all the way back to the 6th position here. Let's really quick take a look back at that replay. Get a better view of things with this situation coming out of turn number 11. No contact from Harsty at all. Just gassed it up too hard, spun out into the infield. Nearly came back around onto the back half of the corner, but manages to point it pointed in the right direction. And now we might be having issues for Feeney as well. We have a couple of drivers off the track right now. Mark Royce is off the raceway in the infield. Or no, not in the infield. That's a broken right front wheel. That is not going anywhere for Royce. He is completely stuck there. Yeah, that 44 machine is not going anywhere at all. That car is completely dead. He's trying to back it up, see if he can't do anything with it, but it is just absolutely stuck there. I would imagine we're going to see the caution flag flying here at any point, and I know drivers probably know that as well. This driver, that car is completely toast here. I mean, he's backing up. He's doing something with it. But I'm not quite sure what that something is, race fans, but he is certainly trying. Green flag is still out on the raceway for the time being. But that right front is just completely broken. There's no getting that back on the racing surface. Try as hard as he might, it's just not going to happen here. Right now, everyone else on the raceway is at a minimum 5 seconds apart from each other. We can pull out the track map here. Everyone is very spread apart right now, as Daniel Sparks having a bit of an off-track moment, but doing a-okay here. That 44 is still just completely beached in the corner. I'm kind of surprised he hasn't just called the tow truck by now, but sure enough, now he has towed and the caution flag is out on the raceway. So caution flag 2 here at Sonoma. And right as the yellow flag flew, Rudolph going off the track there just a little bit. Tell you what, though, I think that's the strangest incident we've ever seen here in the ASRC Oval Series in my time broadcasting here. Garrett Street's tuning in, one half of the SM Racing Products development crew. Weirdest oval I have ever seen. You know what? You're right. It's only fair the weirdest oval have the weirdest incidents. With that, though, let's take a look back. Let's see what actually happened to Mark Royce to cause that damage in the first place, because that was a pretty severe impact, it looked like. So taking a look down here at the number 44, we are in turn 5 right now, which is where we've seen a couple other drivers have issues here. Actually heading down into turn number 6, I'm going to imagine. Touches the curb a little, gasses up too hard, loops it around, tries to spin around exactly like last time, and we might actually be looking at the wrong incident here. Hold on, race fans. We're looking at the wrong incident with Mark Royce. Alrighty, here we go. The actual incident with Mark Royce here. This is 7 laps later after that first incident. Oh, jumps the curb. And then hard impact into the... Ooh, that was a massive hit. No wonder the right front on that car broke. That was a very hard impact. Fortunately, here on the virtualiRacing.com platform, there's no risk of these drivers getting injured, but quite the hop over the curb. Tries to get it slowed down, and that tire barrier just ripped the right front off of it. And sure enough, just there trying to do everything we can. I think we can actually speed this up just to get a good view of all the trials and tribulations Mark Royce went through trying to get this car back to pit lane. I'm not sure if his crew told him that the right front was just completely snapped off, but he most certainly did try. And so the caution flag didn't fly until he formally had the tow truck come over to get him. So we got another lap, pretty much another lap done before the yellow flag flew. And honestly, it's looking like we're playing this footage in reverse here at this point. My thing right about here is, sure enough, right when he called the caution, or right when he called the tow truck. So he is still down on pit lane, and you can see that right front is just completely gone. It was completely ripped off of there. So let's actually let's one more look back. Let's ride on board here with this driver, see what he saw going into this incident. Tried to get it back down and just no luck. Right ripped off of that machine. And then we also got word that there was an incident with Joshua Rudolph right at the same time as this. So let's also quickly take a look and try and see what that was. I think this was entirely independent from the caution. But, oh, another instance. Hopping the curb, loops it around. This looks like this is in turn 2. Brings the car to a stop, but no damage, so no harm, no foul there. So Mark Roy stuck down on pit lane. Daniel Sparks is down here as well, but this looks like it might actually be a scheduled stop for Sparks. Corey Logan coming back out onto the racetrack with a little bit of a damaged race car, but not too terribly damaged. Lights are out on the pace car, so we have gotten the one to green. Going to be 14 to go when we take the green flag this time by going to be Dan Ott, your race leader. Benjamin Harsty starting to his outside for row number 1. The only 2 drivers on the racetrack that are still in the positions where they qualified, Dan Ott and Benjamin Harsty. That's going to be Mark Kluge and Joshua Rudolph for 3rd and 4th. Both drivers up +4 positions from where they qualified. Back in 5th and 6th going to be Brandon Feeney and Corey Logan. Both those drivers down a position from where they qualified. And then it's going to be Daniel Sparks still out on the raceway. Mark Royce, of course, still in pit lane. I don't think they're getting that car back out on the track here this evening. Then Miko Morelli back in 9th. 9 laps down, was having some major technical difficulties at the start of tonight's event, but it looked like he got them sorted out and managed to get back out onto the raceway. 9 laps down, but still going to see nothing else what sort of hot laps he can put down on this raceway. Morelli, one of the really solid road course ringers here in the ASRC Oval Series, so definitely unfortunate that he was unable to make the start of the race, because he is a driver that we would almost certainly be seeing up here contending for the win with Ott and Harsty if he is able to start from the very beginning of things. Regardless, the pace car is going to make the jump down into the safety of pit lane. We are going to try this thing once again. Going to be 14 to go here at the Infineon Raceway for round number 4 of season 15. Side by side, heading down into turn number 12, waiting for the flagman. Green flag up in the air once again here at Infineon Raceway. Getting a good lead down into turns 1 and 2, just behind, still a little bit of side-by-side racing, but we're single filing it out, heading up into turn number 2. Everyone a little bit hesitant to go side-by-side. There is... Well, it looks like Corey's fine. We got a notification that Corey crashed, but it looks like Corey's doing A-okay back there. Heading down now into turns 5 and 6 here. Fortunately, having that little bit of runoff to use, and I don't believe that is giving these drivers an off track there, so that should be fair game for them. Now heading through turns 6 and 7, heading up into the S's here. Single filed out just a bit, but Ott and Harsty still effectively neck and neck for our race lead here. Maybe a little bit of a wiggle there out of that 29 machine, but nothing too drastic as we head down through turns 10 and now head down into the hairpin once again. Harsty just behind, going to head down, potentially trying to make a move to the inside here, but not quite going to be close enough to do it. Then comes Mark Kluge, Brandon Feeney, Joshua Rudolph, Corey Logan, all making their way through the corner without too much difficulty, but Feeney is going to make the move on Mark Kluge there through turn number 11. As up in the front, Harsty still putting the pressure down on Dan Ott here. About 0.4 of a second separating these two drivers for the race lead as they once again are pretty much pulling away from the rest of the field here. These two drivers have some very incredible speed to work with. The best lap for Dan Ott, a 1:18. We have a driver off the track. That is Corey Logan with a hard impact in the outside wall. Still rolling though, just bounced off the tire barrier like it was nothing. Daniel Sparks now off the track as well, into the tire barriers up in turn 4. Looks like he is A-okay. He's going to keep it rolling here as well. So we're going to cut back up to our race lead here. The battle between Dan Ott and Benjamin Harsty, the closest battle on the speedway. I don't think Harsty is close enough to try and make a move here into turn 11 this time around, but you can see, you pretty much can't see any of the field behind them at all at this point. That said, Feeney did eventually pit. Looks like he pit under that second caution, so he is on 7-lap newer tires than the rest of the field, and we've seen that those tires can make a pretty considerable difference here. Look at the lap times. Last time by was actually identical for Dan Ott and Benjamin Harsty, a 1:20.01. And now Brandon Feeney's off the track, way off the speedway in that 38 machine. Went way off in turn number 1. Now he's kind of in an awkward spot to be able to come back up onto the track here. But he does successfully manage to do it. He is going to fall back to the 5th position there, but he does manage to get back up onto the racetrack. Take a quick look back, see what happened to him to send him that far off the raceway. He's carrying way too much speed into turn number 1. Managed to get it slowed down, not taking the very impressive jump that would have been if he kept the throttle down on it. That will send Feeney back on down to the 5th position, but not out of this race by any means. He didn't pick up any sort of damage besides making those tires pretty darn dirty. Just up ahead, Nico Morelli is the driver hot on the heels of that 188. That is not for a position as Morelli, of course, being scored a couple laps down, but great to see him out here on the raceway in that 14 machine. Very unfortunate that he was unable to make the start of the race. Currently running back behind the 188 and subsequently the 45. And look at the lap times. Nico Morelli last time by a 1:24. Oh, I think he's just kind of out here doing laps. I don't think he's really trying to push the car to set a hot lap or anything like that. I think he's just out here for the sake of running the car out here. With a 124, he's setting lap times slower than Daniel Sparks and Corey Logan right now. So who knows? I could be mistaken on that, but right now he's just kind of sitting there in between some of these lead lap cars that are all duking it out here. Feeney, Rudolph, and Mark Kluge. Feeney closing the gap on that 188 machine pretty quickly here, trying to get some sort of ground back after sending it off into turn number 1. Closing in here, got down to about 0.2 of a second. If he manages to hold it there, he might be able to go for a move. Heading down into the hairpin here. Sure enough, going to send it wide. Is he going to try and make the move happen? Not quite close enough to do it, but oh no, managing to pull up alongside coming out on corner exit. Doesn't quite have the speed off the exit to make the move stick, but he might be able to do it here down into turn number 1, go for a pass on the outside. It is not going to happen. Nico Morelli going to gain a spot though. Mark Royce has officially been down on pit lane for 12 minutes now. And that is going to be enough for Nico Morelli to gain a position. He now right on the heels of Joshua Rudolph as all 3 drivers hop the curb there in turn number 5. As we have trouble Corey Logan off the racetrack here. Looks like potentially an impact into turn number 11. We also have Daniel Sparks off the raceway here. He has come to a stop. That might be a blown engine. Caution flag out on the speedway for the 3rd time here at the Infineon Raceway. That is really going to spice things up here this evening. Going to be a mad dash to the finish after we go green flag racing once again. As that number 4 car takes the tow down to pit lane. First, let's take a look back, see what happened to Corey Logan, because we're getting a report that there was a crash with Corey. You can see just behind is the race leader of Dan Ott. As they head down into the hairpin, Corey keeps it way up high as they can. And I think they just slowed down so much to let the leaders by that iRacing thought it was a crash, but no incident there for Corey Logan, just being sportsmanlike, letting the leaders go on by. It was then right after that where we had the issue with Daniel Sparks here. And sure enough, that's a blown engine on the number 4, so there's nothing that could have been done to prevent that caution. That was a mandatory call for the tow truck. So, you know, look back here, right on board here with Daniel Sparks into this incident. In that SCP car. Gas is up, already getting a little bit loose, and I'll tell you what, these tire barriers all throughout the stretch of like 6 to 10 have just been lethal here this evening. Between blowing Daniel Sparks' motor and ripping the right front off of Mark Royce, who's back out on the raceway with a new right front. He is crab walking it harder than any driver I have ever seen, but he is back on the raceway. I don't know if that car is legal anymore, but oh boy. Let's head up onto the chopper, up onto the drone cam, and get a little bit of a better view of just how hard this car is crab walking around the Infineon Raceway right now. I'm really curious to see if Royce is going to bring this back down to pit lane, or if he's going to try and run to the end of the race with this car like this. That is a darn fine crab stance right there. I am proud of that 40. You know what? We got to give our props to the 44 team for putting that car back on the racetrack, but Royce says, nope, I am not driving under green flag conditions with the car like this, and quite frankly, I don't blame him. It would have been funny for me, the broadcaster. Maybe not so much funny for the drivers out on the racetrack, though. And sure enough, I think that's probably going to be the end of the night for Mark Royce as he crab walks his car back to pit lane. Most likely going to be crab walking his car straight back to the crawler and packing it up here for the evening. Dan Ott, our race leader, going to make the call to come down pit lane. Mark Fluge follows down. Joshua Rudolph follows down. Feeney follows down. But Benjamin Harsty elects to stay out. And it looks like Corey Logan will be getting the lucky dog here. But it's going to be Benjamin Harsty, following Feeney's strategy from early on in the race, being the only driver to elect to stay out here. And that may or may not work in his favor. We've seen that the tires make a pretty substantial difference here at the Infineon Raceway, so we'll just have to see how it plays out for him here tonight. As Dan Ott makes his way back out onto the raceway, 14-second stop. Alright, so lights now off on the iRacing.com pace car. Going to be going green flag racing with 5 to go here at the Infineon Raceway. One last mad dash to the finish, or maybe not. Who knows? We might potentially see another caution flag fly and us go into overtime. It is very possible. We'll just have to see how all these drivers manage this final mad dash to the finish line here. Your front runner is going to be Benjamin Harsty and Dan Ott. Mind you, Ott on newer tires here. As Royce off the speedway. Crab walking a little less hard now. They got some more work done. They got it a little bit better straightened out. It is still not perfect by any means. There's definitely still a little bit of crabbiness to that Harley-Davidson 44, but he's at least going to try. Currently being scored 11 laps down. If, in theory, if something happens to Nico Morelli, it is possible that Royce could get his laps back, at least to get back up into 8th. And every position counts for points here, so it's certainly worth the try. And if not, it's always a little bit extra seat time, particularly considering that we have another road course coming up here in just a couple of weeks. Going to be heading to Daytona after this, actually, then a couple of more intermediate and larger ovals, and then we head to Watkins Glen in August. So another road course coming up here in season 15, but for now we're going to be trying to close things off here at Infineon Raceway. Going to be 5 to go when we take the green. Benjamin Harsty and Dan Ott leading the field. Green flag up in the air once again here at Infineon Raceway, side by side, going through turn number 1. I think these new tires might benefit for Dan Ott here just a little bit. Harsty hangs on to the front of the pack here. Going down into turn 2 though, side by side for the race lead. Harsty having a little bit of a wiggle there going down into turn number 3, but Dan Ott is going to clear him for the race lead. Just behind Brandon Feeney coming up on Harsty here as well, heading down into turn number 5. But really, everyone in your top sticks still in a bit of a bubble. A little bit of wiggle back there for Joshua Rudolph, but otherwise still A-okay for the field here. A little bit of a wiggle for Harsty there now coming through turn 7. And now as we head through the S's, Ott starts to pull away here just a little bit as Feeney closes in on Harsty here. No, never mind. Feeney's going to have a bit of a wiggle of his own there. Now getting decently spread out as we head through the S's down into turns 9 and 10, making our way towards turn 11. The hairpin once again. And a major slowdown here for all these drivers. Mark Royce making the call to come back down pit lane. He's still not happy with how that car is crab walking. He wanted to try, didn't quite work out for him. Side by side here between Rudolph and Kluge. Rudolph getting a little bit squirrely there, coming out of turn 12. Side by side through turns 1, heading uphill into turn number 2. Still side by side between Rudolph and Kluge, but Kluge stuck up on the high line, not quite able to hold on. That's going to allow Rudolph to get around him here. And then Rudolph, as much as he did get around him, now he's going off the raceway. Kluge not quite close enough to capitalize on it, though. We might see Rudolph get hit with a slowdown penalty for that. Not 100% sure. But that may play a role here in this battle between Kluge and Rudolph. Corey Logan 20 seconds back right now. This is the closest battle on the raceway for the time being, as Dan Ott has pulled up to a 1.6 second lead over Benjamin Harsty, who has another 1.4 second lead over Feeney. As our race leaders head through the hairpin once again, so far so good for everyone up here. Going to be 3 to go from the flagman for that 29 of Dan Ott. He has certainly led the most laps here this evening, but on a very good run here tonight, and that good wrench number 29. But of course, it ain't over till it's over. Still plenty of opportunities for something to go wrong for some of these drivers, as we still have a battle going on a little bit further back for Kluge and Rudolph. Now we've seen up here through this uphill section is where these two drivers were having a bit of trouble. Speaking of drivers having trouble, Benjamin Harsty goes off the racetrack there. Different tires down into the grass. That is going to lose a full 2 seconds on the race leader of Dan Ott there, and that's going to allow Feeney to close the gap and potentially get involved in this battle as well. Feeney word of closing the gap, not quite there. It's still kind of even between the two of them in this battle for second. Now Feeney's starting to close in here just a bit through the S's, down to about 0.2 of a second. But I don't know if Feeney's going to be able to make the move here into the hairpin. Now, while I say that, Harsty goes off the raceway yet again here. That's going to hurt him even more as those tires just get even dirtier. And as we come across the line, double hockey sticks up in the air, 2 to go from the flagman. 2 more laps around the Infineon Raceway. Dan Ott leading the field with a 3.5 second lead. But all the drama right now in the battle for second between Harsty and Feeney. The gap now grown to, for briefly a full second there, but it's now gotten back down to 0.8 of a second. Feeney does have some speed left in that car, and last time by, Feeney actually was a full second faster than Harsty. But jumping the curbs like that, not doing themselves any favors here. That much is for sure. That was quite the hop over the curbs there in turns 5, and again doing it in turn number 6. I really don't think hopping the curb in the Gen 4 car is quite the way to go about doing things, but you know, I admire the commitment. Feeney is pushing that car with everything he has left to push in it. Both drivers still a full 3 seconds back from Dan Ott. Nico Morelli now off the raceway in turn number 8. And oh no, that is a massive impact for the 14. He's got it rolling. And the white flag is out, so it doesn't matter. We can't throw the caution at this point, even if we wanted to. Dan Ott is a very lucky man, because if that incident with Morelli happened, even 20, 30 seconds earlier, we might have seen the caution flag fly there. But Dan Ott leads the field with a 2.8 second lead. Harsty has another 2-second lead over Brandon Feeney. Really, everyone is pretty spread out around the raceway right now. At this point, it is Dan Ott's race to lose. A 126.2 last time by for Dan Ott, a 123.5 for Benjamin Harsty. And as he heads through the S's, makes his way down to the hairpin for the final time. Nothing to worry about out the back. We may just see Dan Ott take home his first ever win here in the 2024 racing season. White or checker flag up in the air for Dan Ott. And it looks like he is going to be able to get it done here this evening. Dan Ott is a winner here at the Infineon Raceway. A winner here in the ASRC Oval Series. And he's just going to go ahead and start his burnouts here right now. He's not even worried about doing a cool down lap. He managed to get it done here tonight, race fans. And in a rather dominant display at that, Dan really just kind of smoked the field here this evening. Benjamin Harsty put up some good competition for him, but 2.5 seconds back is going to be the difference between first and second here at Sonoma. Benjamin Harsty, of course, made it home second. Brandon Feeney rounding out the podium here this evening. And I imagine once we have Dan Ott pull it around, he's going to be doing a bit more of a burnout across the actual start-finish line and not doing it in the dirt over in turn number 1. But sure enough, Good Wrench going to be coming down to victory lane here. Not for the first time in the ASRC Oval Series here in the 2024 Gen 4 Championship. We've seen a couple of drivers out here with Good Wrench entries. I believe this is the first time that we're going to be seeing the white Good Wrench come down to pit lane here this evening. And he's just going to cut the course. Why not? You got pretty much a whole parking lot to do as much burnouts as you want. You might as well do it. Dan Ott, a first-time winner here at the Infineon Raceway. All in all, I think I'd consider those some pretty good burnouts here. And it looks like that might be all Dan Ott has left to give in there. So we'll be back here in just a moment. Race fans, don't go anywhere. We're going to get some words with your top 3 finishers here this evening. Alrighty, race fans, welcome back to the ASRC Oval Series. Welcome back to the Infineon Raceway. First time the league has ever visited this speedway, so what better than to have a first-time league winner here tonight? Mr. Dan Ott getting it done here this evening. Dan, how are you feeling here tonight?
I'm feeling pretty good. It's one of my favorite tracks and good to get my first win.
Yeah, you certainly put on a heck of a run here this evening. course, running part-time here this season, but quite a dominant display here tonight. And knowing that there is another road course coming up here in a few weeks, do you think you might be able to go back for back on the road courses this season?
I hope so. I mean, Watkins Glen's one of my favorites as well. Just I like road course racing almost more than oval racing at this point.
Fair enough, everyone's got to play to their strengths, and we definitely have a couple of drivers out here that are really solid in the road course ringing department. Of course, we saw Benjamin Harsey putting on a heck of a show here this evening as well. When you came into today's race, were you planning to be taking home the checkered flag from the go of it?
No, I didn't know what I had. I didn't, practice or warm up until I got in here, so I wasn't sure where I lined up. I didn't know if there was any other ringers in here or not.
Fair enough. I mean, you managed to make it work here tonight. We did have a couple of cautions here this evening. Did those really play into your strategy at all, or are you just kind of going with whatever happened?
Just going with the flow. The only one that really did anything was the last one. So I came in, took 4 tires, and I think that was what gave me the advantage there at the end.
Fair enough. Well, certainly a heck of a run here for you tonight. Of course, next week, not quite doing the same thing, going to be heading over to Daytona. How do you feel about heading to a super speedway over there?
I love Daytona, but it's a wild card. You never know what's going to happen. Anybody can win that one.
Fair enough. Well, I hope to see you out there next week, and who knows what might happen. But for now, of course, you got your first win. I don't want to keep you here all night. You got celebrating to do. So for now, the microphone is all yours, Mr. Ott. Who do you want to thank for making everything happen here this evening?
Thank you for the broadcast. Thank teammate Mark Royce. Kind of helping spot at the end once he wrecked out. But that's about it.
Good deal. Well, thank you for coming out here tonight. Congratulations on taking home your first win, and I look forward to seeing you next week at Daytona.
Yep, thank you.
And finishing back in position number 2 in that iRacing 09 machine, Mr. Benjamin Harsey. Not the first time we've had you up here in the broadcast booth. Just a little bit shy of the checkered flag here this evening, though. How are you feeling back in P2 tonight?
It was a good race. I thought maybe with that caution staying out I could get it, but I just couldn't get the grip on that restart to keep the lead. But it was a fun race. Dan did a great job. Congrats to him.
Yeah, you and him both pretty much seemed like the cars to beat here this evening. When you came into tonight's race, were you expecting to be contending for a race win?
I know I like the track. I wasn't sure what to expect. This is a really hard car to drive in road courses. It's hard to keep it on the track. So I think my main goal was not to wreck out, which I nearly did at the start, but uh, I was happy to finish and be in contention.
Fair enough. I mean, wrecking and nearly wrecking is the difference between walking home with a podium and potentially walking home back at the tail end of the field. So I'd say things went for you pretty swimmingly here tonight. Of course, next week, heading on over to Daytona. How do you feel about super speedway racing once again?
Super Speedway is not my favorite, but you never know what'll happen, so give it the best shot.
Fair enough. And I mean, after that, a couple more weeks of sort of all over the place ovals before we head to Watkins Glen. Do you think at least at Watkins Glen you might be able to contend for the lead again?
I would hope so. I don't know which track I'm better at, but I like the road races, so I'll do the best I can.
Fair enough. Sounds to me like that's something we'll have to be keeping an eye out for. But for night, I won't keep you here all evening. I know y'all got a podium finish to go and celebrate. So for now, who do you want to thank for making everything happen here this evening?
I want to thank you for the broadcast. It was missed I think it was last week when there was no broadcast. So enjoyed the broadcast and thanks to all of my family and friends. It sounds like a bunch are viewing tonight. So thanks to all of them and the support.
Good deal. Well, thank you for coming out here tonight. Congratulations on a solid run, and I hope to see you next week at Daytona.
Thanks.
And finishing back in position number 3 in the lovely Liqui Moly number 38, Mr. I'm just here for fun, Mr. I'm not here for race wins, that's leading the championship points still coming out of tonight's race. It's going to be none other than Brandon Feeney. How are you feeling here tonight, buddy?
Extremely warm right now, to be honest with you. Just finished doing a 150 lap race at Bristol, and so I missed all of practice. And now we just did 31 laps at Sonoma.
Fair enough. I mean, apparently you didn't need that practice all that much, considering you're still walking away with a podium here tonight. How were you feeling coming into this?
Not good, because I didn't even know we were racing Sonoma tonight. So I logged into the lobby and seen a road course and was slightly disappointed because I don't do a lot of right turns. And as you can tell, I put it through the dirt a few times and spun it around a few times, but just fast enough that I can get past some of the guys, but not catch up to Ben or Ott there.
Fair enough. I mean, considering the circumstances, I'd say you put on a pretty solid run here tonight. What do you think might have had to have gone differently for you to be taking home that checkered flag?
10-car pileup.
Fair enough. I mean, there was a couple instances where we almost had those, so in an alternate timeline, maybe it would have been possible.
Maybe, but that's why when everyone else pitted, I decided I was going to stay out. Mainly to get those bonus points for leading the lap, which goes into the championship stuff. So I've already been off track, so I knew I wasn't getting the clean race bonus. So I figured I'd get a couple bonus points that way, and wherever I finished, I finished.
Fair enough. I'd say a pretty solid evening all in all then. Of course, next week, heading to Daytona. Perfectly circular to make you happy. How are you feeling about that one?
Daytona's a draft track. If we go back to the beginning part of the season, I think I finished dead last because I was involved like a lap one wreck. So we can't do much worse than that.
Fair enough. You can only go up from here. I like the mindset. And considering you're in the lead of the championship, you might as well do the best you can out there, I guess.
Yeah, like I messaged you during the week. I have no idea how the points work here. I just show up for fun, and whatever happens, happens. And if I win it, I win it. If I don't, I don't. No harm, no foul.
Fair enough. Well, either way, heck of a run out of you here tonight. Before I let you go, though, the microphone is all yours, Mr. Feeding. Who you want to thank for making everything happen?
I got to thank you for hosting the broadcast. Keeping us all entertained, even though you weren't here last week because work things. But I also got to thank Liquid Molly, and then I want everyone to check out my podcast at the Feedy Call, and then if anyone has me on Facebook or stuff like that, check out the Feedy Call Photography, where I've been doing race pictures and stuff like that. And I think if you like racing, you'll like the pictures I take.
Good deal. Well, thank you for coming out here tonight. Heck of a run as always, and I look forward to seeing what y'all can do at Daytona next week.
See you next week, brother.
You heard it here first, race fans, your top three finishers here at the Infineon Raceway. But of course, these weren't the only drivers present here in tonight's event, so how about we take a look down at how things shook out for the rest of our drivers here in tonight's event. Of course, race winner here this evening, having none other than Dan Ott taking home his first checkered flag with ASRC, followed by Benjamin Harsty back in second in that iRacing entry with Brandon Feeney in the 38. Rounded out your top three drivers here this evening. Back and forth, though, going to be the 188 of Joshua Rudolph, followed by Mark Kluge in the 45, rounding out your top five here this evening. Corey Logan back in sixth, going to be the final driver on the lead lap here tonight. And of course, back in seventh, going to be none other than that 14 of Nico Morelli, who unfortunately got a late start to tonight's event. That's going to be Daniel Sparks and Mark Royce back in 8th and 9th, both who had those pretty catastrophic incidents here this evening. With Jason Gardner being at the tail end of the field, of course, had the technical failures in qualifying and ended up just being on race control duty here tonight. So Jason did not earn any laps here tonight, and actually, as such, will not be earning any points towards the championship for tonight's event. So that's how things are going to shake off here tonight for our first of two road courses here this season. Of course, next week, I'm going to be heading on over to Daytona for a bit of super speedway action. After that, going to be heading to Chicagoland on July 22nd. That's going to be New Hampshire in July 29th. Heading to Pocono for the second time on August 5th. Then heading to Indianapolis August 12th. Watkins Glen on the 19th. before rounding out the season with Michigan for the second time, and Bristol will be where we crown the championship for season number 15. So quite the crazy schedule left to go ahead of us for season number 15, and of course still another 12 weeks after that before we crown an overall 2024 champion. But for now, that's about all we got here from the Infineon Raceway. Thank you all for tuning in to tonight's event. Been one heck of a show here on the road courses. Not something all these ASRC Oval Series drivers always get to do, so always fun to see them tackle the challenge. But for now, thank you all for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing y'all same day, same time for next week's event at Daytona.